And another thing is like the neighborhoods are so bad. Like kids are getting shot at just going to school, and like, and they're joining gangs for protection. And people are saying, oh, why can't you just get a job? Go work at McDonald's. Well, why am I working McDonald's so the guy that tried to kill me yesterday could see me there and then catch me when I'm leaving work? Like,
and know where I'm live.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Know where I work, know where I live. Like, they're gonna come get me just because I live in a certain neighborhood. I didn't you don't pick where you live. That your parents did that, and like you have no choice but to adapt to your environment and make a way for yourself. And that's why a lot of these kids are joining gangs and doing this stuff for protection. Because I'm getting shot walking to school, so.
And I like that you said that because, I mean, we're humans. We just adapt to our environment. Yeah. You have minorities out here that there's no way you can get them to focus on school if they're hungry and they don't know what they're finna eat, or they're getting shot at through the classroom, which does happen. Mm-hmm. It does happen. There's schools where kids get shot at. There's schools with lead in the drinking water. They can't even drink water at school. There's schools with roaches. There's schools with rats. There's schools with rodents. There's schools where you don't have teachers with even teaching degrees. Yeah. In Detroit, you know what I mean? You got teachers who aren't even qualified to be a teacher that are teaching. Yeah. You got kids that are shooting dice in classes. You got teachers that are just there to be there, you know what I mean? And it's a survival mindset for these kids. So there's no way that they can actually focus on school because it shows that the government doesn't really care about their education and what's going on. And that's really the way to make it out of that culture, of those poverty-ridden conditions is education and opportunities. And that's something that they are lacking right now.
Yeah, and I was talking to one of my friends who's actually she's a student teacher right now, and she's going to be a teacher. She works at a low income area with kids, and she's like, yeah, Flo, like my students bring guns to school every day, but she's like, but I know they're not there to hurt me or hurt everyone else. They're there, that's for protection, and I feel like that's why like a lot of these kids are carrying guns and stuff because they got to protect themselves some way, You can't fighting's only gonna take you so far. And nowadays people don't fight no more. I'd rather I paid $500 for this gun. Why am I gonna fight you? And that's a lot of the mentalities. And it's sad really to see that because so many innocent kids are dying, and it's it hurts my heart.
Yeah, and I've talked to people who actually came from these circumstances, and they're not evil people. They're not bad people. In all reality, the dudes that are 6'5", 250 pounds, been in jail, lived a hard life, they're just scared. They're scared. They're not these aggressive dudes that you make them out to be. They're just scared. They're carrying the gun because they're scared. They don't want to die. They don't want to get killed. They don't want to get caught lacking. And that's the true, you know what I mean? We look at these guys like they're bad, like, you know what I mean? But in all reality, they're just scared, and there's nobody else out here protecting them.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of these kids or people in general are catching gun cases. It's not because, they want to hurt someone with that gun. It's for protection. No, if I get pulled over and I have a gun on me, no, sir, no, officer, I'm not a gangster. I just, I want to make this C-21 or 25. I just want to live my life. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, especially in Chicago, it's messed up in Chicago. Everyone knows that. But, it's literally, it's my life or your life. At the end of the day, it's going to have to be your life because, I'm out here trying to live. And, and that's kind of a negative way of thinking, but that's a reality for a lot of people.
All right, so now we're going to tap into, gang violence, what goes on, how it originated.
Yeah, so this is something that I know a good amount about. So gangs pretty much started as a way of these minorities to protect themselves from other white gangs and the police especially. Just, same like the Black Panthers, they started for protection. Same with the Black Peace Stones, the Vice Lords, the Land Kings, all these big time gangs that people know started as protection. And then, as time went on, they learned that we're deep, we got a lot of people, we can make some money and selling drugs and all that. And then when crack hit in the 80s, that just took off like a wildfire. Everyone and their mama was doing crack. And it was really just, breaking down neighborhoods, but people were making money, especially in the city of Chicago. I like to call Chicago, the city, the city of gangsters. Ever since the Al Capone days, it's been the gangster city, and it's really, you know, disheartening to see this, because like a lot of people, you know, are leaving Chicago, and you know they think Chicago is just an awful place to live, but like in reality, you know, Chicago is beautiful. But yeah, there is some parts that, you know, you probably shouldn't go if you're not from there. But I mean, there's, you know, there's ghettos everywhere, there's gangs everywhere. It's not something you can really get away from, I guess. But like what I want to do with my work is, you know, hopefully reduce that recidivism rate and show these young kids that you don't have to join a gang, you don't have to do all this. And, you know, I know it's like, it's easy for me to say, but like, we just got to be able to give these kids something to do, you know, back to what we were saying earlier. But, you know, if they have nothing to do and, you know, all their friends are doing this, doing that, you know, they see all this music, and especially the music is playing a huge role in this now. Because, like, you know, they see Chief Keef, Lil Durk, you know, Polo G, you know, they're all, you know, especially King Von, like, they're all repping that, you know, gangbanging stuff. And, you know, they're glorifying it when reality is not what it is, you know, what they portray it to be. You know, it's, you know, innocent kids are dying, you know, moms are burying their sons over colors, over blocks that they don't even own. That, like, you know, the government, you know, they own that. They, you know, that's not your block. But, you know, I just feel like so many people have died, and so many people are going to continue to die over, you know, just this long existing violence that has always been happening. And, you know, it's pretty messed up.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And it's just a culture of kids, you know what I mean, joining gangs because that's the only thing in the area to join. There's nothing else positive. There's no other positive influences in their life. Lack of opportunities. What else are you going to do? You know what I mean? You live in a neighborhood where your neighbor is a gang member, your other neighbor is a gang member. You walk out, and because you're not a gang member, you're getting targeted by everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You walk out, they want your shoes.
Yeah.
Or they're going to go in your house and get your shoes. You know what I mean? So you got to join some type of gang for protection because the police aren't there to protect you.
Yeah. And that happened a lot to me growing up. Like, I would just be walking down the street, you know, and two dudes pull up on me like, hey, bro, what you is? You gangbang? Nah, bro, I don't gang. Like, what? Like, one time I was in Pilsen. I was at a little carnival, and me and my homie Moses and my other friend Andy, we're walking back to our car, and I'm a pretty big little Mexican. I got a sleeve, I'm tatted, you know, and they pull up on me, you know. First thing I heard was click click. I was like, oh man, it's about to get real. So I instantly put my hands up. They're like, oh, what's up, bro? What you is? You gangbang? Like, I'm like, nah, bro, whoa, I don't do none of that. Like, we here to make a TikTok and all that. And they're like, nah, bro, like, I saw you talking to the police, whatever, yada yada. I was like, hey, bro, I don't know none about that. Like, you know, I'm just trying to get to my car, you know. And the next thing you know, like, their big homie came out with a pit bull, and he was like, hey, these them? And he was like, nah. So thank God for that guy, because he probably saved my life that day. But yeah, man, like, especially like being a minority, and, you know, people are gonna mess with you just because of the way you look. And it doesn't matter if you're involved or not, because if you look like someone they know, they're gonna be on that with you, no matter what.
Yeah, and most gangs, when they were created, they weren't even created to be violent. They weren't created to kill people or sell drugs. They were created to actually create a community to teach the youth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know that gangs, I don't know about nowadays, but back in the day, they used to teach, you know what I mean? You had GD, growth and development. They used to actually teach you about the laws of the universe and your rights and just life stuff that's going to help you. Like, people don't understand that a lot of the gang members, they started out being really spiritual and actually providing another outlet for these kids. And I mean, look up the laws of the universe and start learning that. And they learn about like the law of vibration, like, you know what I mean? Whatever you do in this world will come back to you and stuff like that. And a lot of them do have morals, and that's what we don't understand, as a lot of gang members do have morals. But nowadays it's a new culture of just recklessness, kids that just want to be violent, and that's what gangs are nowadays. And it did not start out that way, and I feel like it's shifted like that because gangs were criminalized and gangs were attacked. The war on drugs, stuff like that. The war on drugs, let's talk about the crack cocaine pandemic, where if you had